In this tutorial, we're going to look at the area of social relationships. In a sense, your entire life is nothing but a series of relationships with all kinds of people in a wide variety of roles. The things you are learning about culture and cultural differences are only going to be meaningful when applied to specific situations with specific individuals, as you handle relationships both social and in work. As you enter the world of social relationships in a new community, you will need to develop a good understanding of how people usually relate to one another. That will take time as you interact and learn from the people in your new community. First, however, you need to learn how relationships work on a bigger level in your own community. This exercise asks you to construct a map or a chart of yourself, of your own setting, showing how you relate to and regard other people. Here is a list of types of people and a diagram with a series of rings or concentric circles with you in the center. Draw your own circle diagram on a piece of paper. Then write each type of person in one of the rings, nearer to you or further from the center, depending on any or all of the following criteria. How closely you are involved in that person's life and vice versa. How responsible you feel for the happiness and well-being of that person and vice versa. How much of your inner life, your most private thoughts and feelings you share with that person and vice versa. How much that person means to you. You can add other types of people and leave off any of the lists that you don't feel apply to you. Add to the rings if necessary, or to draw your own chart if the replacement of the rings doesn't suit you. Don't worry about being too precise. The idea is to get a general sense of the personal and emotional closeness you feel toward the closest people in your life. For example, your parents, your grandparents, complete strangers, or your first cousins. When you're finished, compare your chart with the ones here, which are examples of how different people in different cultural backgrounds would organize general categories of people in their personal relationship chart. The first diagram would be from a Western individualist culture where friends are just as important as family, or more so even. The second diagram is from a collectivist culture where family and group ties determine personal and social closeness, and friendships with others are not considered to be nearly as important. The fact is that emotional and social distance from other people is greatly affected by culture. For example, the African idea of family is large. Cousins and second cousins all fall under the heading of brother or sister, and uncles and aunts function as parents. If I was a student and studied in the city of Dakar, the assumption would be that I could live in the city with my extended family. This would also be true in many Asian cultures. It can be very helpful for you to understand how people think about their circle of relationships when you are entering into relationships with people from another culture. You may make a friend in another culture, but what does that friendship mean to that person? And is their assumption of their relationship with you the same as your own assumption? It is important to learn how to develop new friendships in your own culture to be better prepared for trying to make friends in another culture. Most people just let friendships happen to them without actively seeking them out. This might be okay in your own setting and culture, but when you move to a new town, a new area, or a new country, you will have to become actively thoughtful about making friends in order to become a part of the new community. Relationships always begin as superficial acquaintances and then, in some cases, progress to deeper friendships. So if your goal is ultimately to form friendships, you must start out at the surface level, and from there you may eventually form a deeper friendship. Recall how your previous good friendships have started. They weren't profound at the beginning, they were superficial, and you gradually got to know your friends better. You shared more experiences. You found more common ground as time went on. You began to trust one another, and that's how it works. You can't skip the superficial stage, so you might as well master that level first. Many of the friendships you formed in childhood began before you even remember. But this is how they began. This is how they all start. First, you learn a person's name and where they are from and what they do for a living, or where they went to school, etc. Then you learn their interests. If you find common ground, the relationship gradually moves from the superficial to the deeper and more lasting kind of friendship. What are some of the ways that friendships are typically formed in our own culture? Here are some suggestions. Many people make friends at work. Open yourself up to the possibilities by participating in social occasions such as dinners or lunches to celebrate birthdays. Follow your interests. For example, join a neighborhood walking group or sporting team, a Bible study, or a painting class. If you don't work and have no particular hobbies, consider joining a volunteer group with a charity that interests you. Use your existing network of family and friends to meet new people. When you have the opportunity to be friendly, at work, at church, or anytime, make an effort to be friendly and interested in other people. Don't turn down social invitations. See them as opportunities to meet people and to develop deeper relationships. Invite people out for a coffee or over to your home. Many people find it difficult to make friends. They might be shy or feel they lack the skills to start a conversation. Here are some suggestions. Join groups that share your common interests. Talking about one of your interests, such as gardening or writing short stories, for example, will make it easier to connect and give you the confidence to talk about other things with potential new friends. Watch and learn from gregarious people who make friends easily. If you know someone who does this well, why not ask them for some conversation tips or advice? Practice looking people in the eye when you talk to them. Listen to what others are saying rather than focusing on your own self-consciousness or your own interests. Actively listen and prepare a follow-up question to ask about what the person just said. Try to get them talking about things that interest them. Look for anyone else in the room who seems socially awkward and approach them for conversation. When you talk to someone new, ask them simple questions about themselves or what they like to do. It's a good way to get started. Social skills can be learned, and the more you step out of your comfort zone and try, the easier it will be the next time you do it. So never give up. The dynamics of romantic relationships are often puzzling enough in our own culture, but even more complicated in an intercultural context. The reason we are covering it here is that norms for romantic relationships are influenced by culture. Different cultures give signals in different ways. You may be the object of someone else's interest, or you may be unintentionally communicating interest in another person who then responds. It is important then for you to be aware of any differences between the norms governing romantic relationships in your own culture and to be aware of those in another culture and how they may be different and they may also be very subtle. This is something you will learn through time spent with people in your new community. Think about the questions below and how you would answer them from the perspective of your own culture. And feel free to add any of your own questions to this list here. How does a man show he is interested in a woman? How does a woman show she is interested in a man? How does a man show he is not interested in a woman who is interested in him? How does a woman show that she is not interested in a man who is interested in her? How do you know when the relationship is becoming something more than just a friendship? What are signs that the other person is taking this relationship much more seriously? What do men and women do to show they want to pull back or cool down the relationship? How much touching, embracing, and kissing is appropriate for a couple in public? As we read this incident, think about what might have contributed to the misunderstandings that occurred. Angela, an Australian working in India, is an outgoing, vivacious, and warm person with a ready smile. She introduces herself to people at social events and makes them feel at ease. Last week, a shy, middle-aged widower at work asked her out to dinner, and she accepted and had a pleasant evening. He asked her again this week, and while she was somewhat hesitant, she accepted again. Now today, he has sent her a beautiful card containing a marriage proposal. Angela, by the way, is 24 and not interested in marriage. Now what? What signals did Angela give that might have been misinterpreted, or what foundational cultural understandings might have been different to begin with?